Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Thursday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Got a good show lined up today. A lot of guys that know a lot of information. We're going to kick it off here in just a second with our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. And then we're going to be joined by Gator Country's Franz Beaird. No relation. They spell the name different. But let's head on to Jacksonville to our good friend, Brent Beaird. You can follow him on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, I'm doing fine. We have more vowels than just about anybody, so I can appreciate that. Doing good. And listen, I'm guessing you're on the same page with me. We're just glad that we can get away a little bit from the off-the-field stuff and start fall camp, right?
There's no question. Most teams start up tomorrow. The Gators start tomorrow. We have football tonight, believe it or not. The Hall of Fame game in the NFL kicks off. So at least that'll give you something to watch, whether you care about it or not. I don't think a lot of people do, but at least it'll be fun watching football. Before we get into college football, Brent, I want to give a shout out. Congratulations to Grant Holloway for winning a silver medal. I think a lot of people are disappointed. I don't know if Grant, I'm sure he's disappointed because he just basically was torturing people. And the crazy thing about the Olympics, and especially when it comes to track, man, there's so many dang guys that can win, and it's just it's 1/100th of a second or whatever it is, and give that Jamaican a lot of credit, boy. The last few meters, boy, he was like he had a jetpack on.
A lot of people love to be able to have a silver, wouldn't they, Shane? But again, and you're right. No doubt he's disappointed. But look, and as you know, you can talk, people can conjecture, but until you actually do it, you just never know what's going to happen. So he'll certainly rebound from that, but still one of the greatest athletes on the Olympic team.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Brent, let's jump right into college football. Let's start with some quarterbacks. There's some quarterbacks that have thrown for a bunch of yards that are coming back this year. Some names that people may recognize, some they may not. Yeah,
very true. The Brewer kid at Utah has got 9,700 yards. I think basically everybody knows Mackenzie Milton, and we've talked this before about having basically 9,000 yards with that too. This Pickett kid at Pitt, very few people talk about him. I know with your eagle eye, you are aware of him as he's almost got 8,000 yards. Derek King's got 7,600. Sam Howell, too, in that 7,000-yard mark. In UCF with Gabriel with 7,000. I don't know who caught your eye out of this group, but Shane, in your time of being a quarterback, listen, when you're nearing, 7,000 to 10,000 yards in your career, that's quite a feat, is it not?
Yeah, it is. And a lot of these guys that you mentioned, some have transferred and played at other places. I was going to ask you, the Brewer kid at Utah now, who has the most, is that the kid that used to be at Baylor?
Yeah, and by the way, the Bentley kid, who is at South Alabama, is familiar because he at one point he was South Carolina.
Yeah, he's been everywhere. He went to Utah, played a little bit there last year. Seems like Jake Bentley's been in college for about 10 years. The Longhorns, they're coming into the league. They've had some success in the past against some SEC schools record-wise. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the only amazing, you could stop, how many cars could you stop on 301 and ask them the only two teams that have a winning record against Texas or South Carolina in Vanderbilt? if you can believe that. Now, Texas 9-8-1 against LSU, 6-2 against Ole Miss, 7-1-1 against Alabama. The only loss, obviously, being in the national championship game. Where some of that came from was, frankly, that Coach Bear Bryant's inability. He didn't have much of this to beat Notre Dame and also to beat Texas. So, and by the way, people remember to this day, Joe Namath, back in the early 60s when he was quarterback in Alabama, will tell you that he got in the end zone on that quarterback sneak. It wasn't called a touchdown, but Joe would love to argue with you about that, Shane.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. If you've got joint pain in your knees, shoulders, hip, or back that won't go away, you need to check out QC Kinetics for long-lasting relief. No surgery, drugs, or downtime. Schedule a free consultation at QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. Call the good folks at QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. We're speaking with our college football analyst, Brent Beaird, here on the Titan & More Hotline. We'll be joined by Franz Beaird in the second portion of the show, talk more Gators. Okay, this was a note that you sent me, Brent, that I think a lot of people may be interested in. The lowest projected win totals for this season. Tell us who those awful football teams are.
Well, I think there's absolutely no question. Anytime you start a discussion like this, you've got to start with Kansas, don't you? With that,
yeah.
But the reality is, and look, Bowling Green, New Mexico State, UMass, Louisiana Monroe, UNLV, UConn. That some people even think that UConn doesn't have a team now. Akron, where Terry Bowden was for a while. Boy, that looks bad with that Arizona team, doesn't it, Shane? With 2.67, and Shane, not much better is South Florida. USF only predicted to win 3 games this year. Yeah, we don't look at that very often. We're looking at the better teams in situations like this. Shane, it really makes you wonder, and this is more of a sermon on another day, but in 5 to 10 years, I wonder if some of these teams we've just mentioned here, do they end up at a lower division in the NCAA maybe?
I think you're right. I think like UMass, I want to say they went Division I not too long ago. It seems like I could see them dropping back down. Brent, there was a lot of talk about the ESPN or something with the Big 12. Last week when the powerhouses of the Big 12 left, OU and Texas. What was going on there, and what's the latest between ESPN and the Big 12?
Well, they're still trying to coexist, and I give Matt Hayes a lot of credit for this. Matt made a really good point earlier in the week in a tweet saying that ESPN stepped in and saved the Big 12 in 2011, and people may forget that during that time the Pac-10 was looking at trying to divide about half the conference at that point. But look, and then Bob Bowlesby, he gets mad at ESPN. Still, now look, they also do a lot with Fox. We get that, but at some point you've got to deal with ESPN on some terms. So they're just kind of, I think, talking back and forth, negotiating back and forth. See, a lot of this stuff is just bluster and guys running off at the mouth, particularly these politicians who say they want to sue everyone. And you've also got some talk back and forth between Mike Oresco with the American, who really has done an incredible job, frankly, with that conference, and Bob Bowlesby of the Big 12. Bowlesby also accused Oresco and the American of trying to poach some of his teams too. And then at the same time, you've got the Washington State president, Kurt Schultz, who is calling the SEC predatory because they're coming and getting whoever they want. So you've got a lot of yapping back and forth, frankly, which really in the long run means nothing, between politicians and school presidents and commissioners with the SEC and with ESPN. All this is going to quiet down at some point as the goals are still to see where expansion goes, the expansion of the playoffs. But we've still got a long way to go before we know what's going to happen with these conferences.
Yeah, Brent, I saw a note about the SEC. It's going to have 10 new starting quarterbacks in the league. I didn't even realize that until I read it. Not a whole lot of star power at that position going into the 2021 year.
Well, see, it's very unusual. That's an astute point. I mean, you've got like Bryce Young at Alabama. We know he's going to be the starter, but he's never really started a game. And by the way, his trip to the Swamp is going to be his first road game. And you know how difficult that can be on young quarterbacks at times. And then, I mean, you can almost pick a team as far as deciding who the quarterback is going to be. I mean, Florida is even in that a little bit. We know Emory Jones is probably going to be the guy, but Anthony Richardson is so talented. Can you keep him on the bench? We know about Bo Nix, but TJ Finley's there too. Both Shane and I are not real high on either one of them, but still, you've got some quarterback battles, certainly at Texas A&M, Mississippi State. You've got quarterback battle. Well, we were going to have one, and we'll get into it in a few minutes, at LSU. That's pretty much been decided now after the Miles Brennan injury. But to your point, in respect to the time here, that we've got probably, unlike the last several years when we knew who the quarterback was going to be for virtually every team, there's a lot of mystery to that this year.
Really is. Turn your car or truck into a rolling billboard for your business or brand with an eye-catching vehicle wrap from RouteSpot. This August, mention promo code Shane to receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. Speaking with Brent Beaird here on the Titan MR Hotline. Okay, Brent, I've talked about this, I think, every day on the show this week, and it just blows my mind, and I need documentation because I don't buy it. This kid from Texas, this quarterback, is enrolling early because if he doesn't, he's going to miss out on $1 million. Who in the hell is going to give this guy any money before he takes a snap at Ohio State? Can someone please explain this to me?
So, yeah, I think this is a huge mistake on his part. This is Quinn Ewers, who is, yes, he's the nation's top-rated quarterback in the 2022 class, but he is going to enroll at Ohio State for the fall semester. Look, they've got a pretty crowded quarterback room as it is. Now, how do they placate him coming in, and with him thinking that he's going to make $1 million or close to it, like Bryce Young in Alabama is going to make with $800,000? Shane, I'm with you on this. And here's my other question about this, and you understand this from being a businessman. Is if you're a business person, or I mean, are you going to give money to a guy that really should be in camp for his senior year in high school? I'm really wondering at some point, and I don't know if they can do this or not, but what can colleges do to keep this from happening? I think the kid needs his high school year. And I'm not trying to be the grumpy old guy and trying to keep people off my lawn here, but I'm with you totally on this. I'm hoping that this is not going to become a precedent. Now, the recruiting people say this guy may be the 1% of the 1%, more of that phrase we all know, but Shane, if this starts happening, this is not a good precedent, I don't think.
No, and someone brought up the other day, and this is not a shot at Jeff Driscoll because I think he turned into a pretty good player, and he's been in the NFL for a long time. He was the number one quarterback coming out of high school. and I don't think he became the player people thought. And I you say Bryce Young is supposed to make $800,000 as of now. Have we still seen any of like? Is it true? You know what I mean? I haven't seen like Company X come out and say, yeah, we're going to stroke a check to Bryce Young for him to represent our company, and we're going to give him $250,000. Not saying that Nick Saban and those guys are making things up, but have you seen any documentation or anything about who's giving him this money?
No, not yet. I mean, that may come out a little bit later on, but I haven't seen anything or heard anything as far as the specifics of it beyond what Saban has said, and also beyond what a few beat writers have come up with, and they didn't have any specifics with the report either.
Yeah, and this kid that's going to Ohio State may never take a snap, for all we know.
That's right. Absolutely. That's
it's crazy. I think it was Tuesday night, Brent, ESPN came out with their power rankings. Anything surprise you in their top 25 power rankings?
Not a whole lot. I mean, Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, Georgia are the top 4. You've got North Carolina at 10. Cincinnati is at 11. That certainly gives them a lot of respect. Iowa State at 7. The Gators are at 12, which is basically kind of where we're seeing them. Miami is well regarded at 15. So, and I'm sure you caught the fact, Shane, that Coastal Carolina is 22. Louisiana, who's a really good team that plays Texas in the opener, is also 23. Ole Miss at 24. So, no, it's pretty much what we've seen so far from the magazines, except some teams are a little bit more well thought of than they were in the magazines.
Yes, and I saw where Notre Dame, they're going to stream their home opener against Toledo on Peacock. Let me ask you this. I don't understand all the streaming thing. Why are they doing this? Is it due to the Ryder Cup? Is the Ryder Cup going on at that time, and does NBC have the Ryder Cup?
They might, but I think this is more because Peacock's paying them a boatload of money to go. That's the first time. Now, look, this is this is interesting. It's innovative, and I give them a lot of credit as far as creativity here. My question is going to be, and a lot of people don't understand this yet, is a lot of their longtime alumni are going to be picking up the remote and looking for watching Notre Dame, and they're not going to be able to find it. So I'm really wondering what the reaction of the alumni and boosters are going to be the week of the game when they realize they don't have this, and how do they get it?
And do you have to pay for it? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and look, I'm just kind of learning about the streaming situation, but here's a lesson that we need to learn from this is, Shane, when we really get into the playoffs and some of these contracts that are going to have to be redone, is how much are these streaming entities going to be a part of this, maybe a whole lot more than we realize.
Yeah, it possibly could. All right, Brent, let's go around the SEC. Any new news coming out of Tuscaloosa before they start practice?
Well, Nick Saban got a raise. So after winning the national championship, you do that. So salary now at $10.3 million. A lot of people still believe that he is underpaid for what he does. Now, the final 6 years of the deal will eventually get him up to $11.5 million. So, look, he can walk into the president's office tomorrow and say, can we go $20 million? I don't think they'd bat an eye, frankly. So now they've had a verbal commitment as of late. They're up to, I think, number 3 now in the recruiting rankings. Dane Shore, who's an offensive lineman from Kingsland, by the way, from Alpharetta, is verbally committed. Florida was interested in him too. So basically, Bama, like everybody else, starts on Friday, tomorrow, and they've got as many questions as everybody else does. Jamison Williams, the transfer from Ohio State, how's he going to fit in? Jaleel Billingsley, is he going to be kind of a Kyle Pitts along that line too? So big position battles going on for Bama as it is everyone else.
Yeah, it really is. We just got a text on the Titanamore text line for you, Brent. It comes from Jason. He wants to know, Brent, do you have a sleeper school that may surprise people this season in any conference?
Well, I think if Ole Miss can put together a defense, you've got to be able to look at them to see what they may do. Now, I'm curious if you've heard this too. Some of the people we've talked to in the ACC have mentioned Boston College could be really good this year. Also heard a little bit about North Carolina State. Dave Doring has really done a pretty good job in that situation too. So just off the top of my head, that's a really good question. Those are a couple that I will throw out there that we've heard so far, and certainly during the month of August, we'll pick up on that and do a few more of them.
Yeah, the Gators, we talked about it last week, got a big commitment from a tight end out of the state of Missouri. Not a whole lot else has been happening. We'll talk to Franz about maybe some Friday night lights and things of that nature. But you haven't really had any other news before they kick off camp, right?
No news is good news right now except recruiting. So if you're a Gator fan, be very happy about that.
Yep. The Georgia Bulldogs. Eric Gilbert, who went to LSU and then was committed to Florida for a couple of weeks, is now at Georgia. Is he going to be eligible to play this year?
Kirby Smart at Media Day told us that he is in position to be academically eligible. Now, there have been some articles this week that have kind of followed up on that with the thought that he would. They're not saying anything official yet, and frankly, in fairness for Gilbert, hopefully that is going to be the case. Right now, look, he is an incredible specimen. I mean, he is, I'm not saying he's Kyle Pitts, but he is Kyle Pitts-like for our listeners. So that's a guy to really, if he can play and he can keep his head on straight, he'll make a real impact at Georgia, yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. LSU, I was pretty sure Miles Brennan was going to be their starter. Have they said how he broke his arm? I know they said like a freak accident or something along those lines, but do we know?
Yes, his father, and this just came out a little bit ago. His father is Owen, and his father said, this is pretty incredible, Miles had fishing gear in his hands when his flip-flop got caught in a dock, causing him to fall. He was unable to brace himself. Now get this. His dad said that Miles went to bed thinking that it was just a bruise before the doctors confirmed that it was a compound fracture.
Wow. That's a shame. I can see that happening, though. Walking on a dock and a flip-flop, and then you got your hands full and you try to brace yourself. That's a shame. I hate to hear that. So it looks like Max Johnson will be their starter.
Yes.
We'll find out. He played well at the end of the year. I think they go out to UCLA, I think, week 2. All right, the Ole Miss Rebels. A lot of people like the Rebels if they can play a little bit of defense. They got a really talented guy, Jerry Ely, who's been a running back, but they're talking about using him all over the field.
I think when you've got a guy that is that talented, like Florida did with Kadarius Toney, you've got to put him in different positions, in the slot, running back, wide receiver, probably return kicks. I guess I got to be careful with him about that. My big question about this team is, as we mentioned a minute ago, how good can they be defensively? They need to be able to get to the quarterback. They think Sam Williams, Cedric Johnson can be able to do that. They like their safeties, Otis Reese, A.J. Finley, for instance. Now, the problem is they had one of their better defensive backs, John Hayes, has entered the transfer portal, and he was a starter for the last 2 years and just entered it this week. So I don't know what these kids are thinking sometimes, unless they've got someone else maybe coming in at some point that's better. But that I thought that was a bit of a blow for them.
It was, and also I read where Lane Kiffin they're starting to recruit like a lot of these college basketball teams. They got 2 guys on their roster from Canada, and they got 1 from Germany.
Yeah. Well, if you can find players, you do it. There are more kids coming from Canada as of late that we've seen in quite a while now. What we all know about their Australia punters and kickers. But, defensive lineman Jaden Dix is one of the guys that is a native of Toronto.
The Aggies, Brent, the more I think about it, I think this is their year. I think somehow they're going to find a way to beat Alabama. They play them in College Station. I love the skill guys they have. I think they have like 8 or 9 starters back on the top-ranked SEC defense. If they get some quarterback play, which I was never enamored with Kellen Mond, I think whoever Jimbo throws in there will be just as good. What's going on with the Aggies?
I think the question the one that came up this week was, how good are they going to be at receiver? Now, look, you've got guys like Anaya Smith, who I think is one of the best in the nation. I mean, he's just absolutely unbelievable, and they're going to play him pretty much everywhere. Jimbo talked about some of the guys they've got coming back. Caleb Chapman is really very good. One of the taller guys that they've got, Moose Muhammad, Jalen Preston, Devin Price, Demond Demas. Now, some of our listeners may not be real familiar with these names. They will by the end of the year. But, look, Shane, you know good well that they're going to have really good skill position players, and the Weidemeyer kid at tight ends is going to be one of the best. And you hit on this a minute ago. The reason that they're going to be so good is, for the first time since Jimbo has been there, and the first time in a long time, they've got an SEC-type defensive line, and as we know, that's how you win championships.
Absolutely. Brent, before we let you go, give me some nuggets.
Clemson, I'm going outside the league a little bit. They had a kid from Trinity Christian. They got in a lot of trouble. Fred Davis, by the way, was traveling 115 miles an hour in a 50-mile zone and collided with a postal carrier. So everybody, I think, is okay with this. But Shane, would it be safe to say that that's not what coaches want to hear when right before the season begins? And look, both Clemson and Florida State have denied reaching out to the SEC. That was in a report earlier in the week. Look, my answer to that is anybody, and I mean anybody right now that is not in the SEC is reaching out to somebody. I'm not saying your AD or president are doing it, but through back channels, they're checking all this out. And Shane, listen, why wouldn't you? If you're Clemson and Florida State, number one, you look at the teams that come for your home games, and number two, regardless of who it is, Clemson, Florida State, or whoever, these teams are trying to better themselves and get a better deal, are they not? So, for media who deny that any of this is going on, I think we all know that it is in some form or fashion.
Yep, that's true. Brent, before I let you go, I'm going to ask you this. I think every time we have you on this year, do you think Texas and OU are playing in the SEC next year?
I'm going to say yes, and certainly the year after that. They'll be in the SEC within 2 years.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll be playing next year. All right. Good stuff as always, Brent. Have a great week. I'll see you this afternoon, and we'll talk to you next week, my man.
Can't wait, bud. Take care. Thank you.
Yep, that's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. You can follow him on Twitter at Brent Beaird. We're going to take our first time out of the program. We're going to come back, and we're going to be joined by Franz Beaird of Gator Country. And there's no relation to Brent Beaird, but they do a tremendous job. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, won't back down. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, non-surgical regeneration, live pain-free. South State Bank, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Doreen Weeby Realtor Caldwell Banker, M.M. Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Wrap Spot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Silverback Concrete Company. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit podupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Point's where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Regal Cinemas, Bass Pro Shop, Nike, Le Macaron French Pastries, Palmetto Moon, and coming August the 11th, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors Tailgate and Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators go to celebrate. We're going to go back to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Gator Bait's Franz Beaird. Good morning, Franz. How are you, my man?
Good morning. I'm watching little animals pair up 2 by 2, waiting for a boat to come along. My gosh, we've gotten a lot of rain, but hey, rain or no rain, we got an indoor practice facility, and football practice starts very soon at the University of Florida.
Yes, indeed. It starts tomorrow, and I know a lot of people are excited. And speaking of the Gators, Franz, first question I want to ask you. When looking at this team on paper and what you've seen from last year, who's the projected starters, what's the strength of this football team in your opinion?
Well, I think it starts with a coach that let's start with the offense. And I think it starts with a coach that has a history of building his team around his team's strengths. And I think we're going to see a different type of Florida offense this year. I think it's going to resemble in many ways the offense that the Gators ran when Tim Tebow was the quarterback. You're going to see quarterback like Emory Jones or Anthony Richardson when he's in there, because they're going to play them both. But I think you're going to see quarterbacks getting outside the pocket, forcing cornerbacks to make decisions. Do I cover the guy, or do I come and tackle the quarterback? And I think we're going to see it's going to be an exciting offense, but I don't know that it's going to put 40 points a game up like it did last year. And I don't think we're going to throw for 4,000 yards, but I think we're going to, I think it's going to be an offense that probably generates about 450 yards a season. The defense, I don't think, can be that weak again. I think that they got hurt a lot last year, Shane, by the fact that there was no contact during the week. And as a quarterback, you can find guys to run routes and you can make throws and stuff like that. But defensive guy, you don't find, in the park, in the local park, you don't find guys that can necessarily cover. You've played enough pickup games to know that, and in real life, it's even worse. So I think that the defense was always like a step behind last year because no spring practice, no drills working against the Florida receivers, against guys that had size and speed, et cetera, like that in the off season. No conditioning. I think that's going to be the critical thing. If I'm looking for an overall strength, though, I think it's going to be the adaptability of the coaches. And I know that may sound kind of generic to a lot of people, but I think this is a coaching staff that will go to the strength of the team and adapt to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you mentioned, you brought up, not a whole lot of contact from a tackling standpoint. I'm pretty sure you're aware of the new rules that the NCAA has passed where they can't have back-to-back days of contact in college football now. I mean, it's all the rules are favoring the offense these days. Does that concern you?
Yes.
Because there's not going to be a whole lot of tackling drills going on.
It does concern me, but it also means that on the days you are allowed contact, boy, they have to be focused and specific. There cannot be wasted days in practice. You could afford a bad day in practice if you know you're going to come back the next day and hit and stuff like that. You can get past it. But if you for example, game week, Monday is a film day and stretch it out, work out the kinks from the previous game. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are hitting days typically. So you're really only going to get one hitting day a week because Thursday is tune it up a bit. So you're not going to hit hard then. So it means that it's going to put a lot of pressure on that Tuesday practice. It's going to have to be a good practice to have a good Saturday.
Yeah, we're speaking with Franz Beaird from Gator Bait here on the Titan MRO hotline. Okay, so Franz, we kick it off tomorrow. What position battle or battles are you keeping your eye on the most?
Well, the first thing that I'm looking for is what's going on at quarterback. And I know that people say that Emory's got it locked up, and I think Emory's going to be given the first option, and I think he's going to be a good option. But I think Anthony Richardson is really, really good. I'm going to be interested to see how Dan uses both of them because I don't think he can. I don't necessarily think he can go with one quarterback this year, and he's gone with two before. If you remember 2006, Tim Tebow was the sledgehammer, was the single wing tailback, and Chris Leak was the thrower. And they did it well then and won a national championship with it. But that offense was kind of limited. I don't think this offense will be as limited. But that's one right there. The other one that's going to be interesting to me is at center. I know Stuart Reese is going there as the starting center, but I know Kingsley Agakwan behind him is really good. If John DeLance struggles at right tackle, I think you'll see one of two things happen. I think you'll see either Stuart Reese go out to right tackle, and people forget he had 20-something starts at right tackle at Mississippi State, and Hevesy played him at right tackle in 2017 as a redshirt freshman. He started all the games there. But he could also move to right guard, and they could move Josh Brown out to right tackle. If John DeLance struggles at all, I think they're so confident in Kingsley Agakwan at center that they will shuffle that line down, and it'll either be Reese at right tackle or Brown at right tackle. And I know a lot of Gators who are down on John DeLance think that would be a great idea. I'm going to be interested to see how he does in particular. He's been a pretty good run blocker in the past, but he's been a suspect pass blocker. And I'm going to be interested to see how he adapts this year. If he's better this year, then Florida's offensive line could be pretty darn good.
Hey, Chris Doring Mortgage. They do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Franz Beaird from Gator Bait here on the Titan MR hotline. We got a couple of Facebook Lives and texts for you, Franz. Chris says, just a quick hello to Franz from a guy who used to post back in the day on Gator Country as Longwood Gator. He says hello. And then I got a question for you, Franz. Let me see. Where is that? The text. Here it is. I'm going to ask you this one in just a second. When you went back to how Dan played two quarterbacks in 2006, Tebow, the fullback / quarterback run, Chris Leak, the thrower. If that were the case this year, which one's the thrower?
I think Anthony is a better thrower. I think here's what I've concluded. I think Emory Jones is an exceptionally good runner who's a pretty good passer. I think Anthony Richardson is an excellent passer who's a pretty good runner. So I think that Dan's got a situation where you can't just you can't say when Emory's in there, okay, they're going to run the football, because they're going to throw it too. And I don't think when Anthony's in the game, you can necessarily say, well, okay, they're throwing it with him. I think that, and I think this is going to play to Dan Mullen's strength, actually, because Dan is very, very good at seeing the entire field, kind of like this guy that you used to play for, that's Steve somebody. Mm-hmm. You know, he could see the whole field, and you come to the sideline after you'd had the ball, and he'd say, okay, Shane, you know, they're weak right here, or you need to go with the ball right here. Let's focus on this. I think Dan's just like that. He sees the whole field, and he's going to be able to say, okay, we're going to exploit this area. But I think that it's going to work kind of like that to his advantage, in that he's got two guys that can both run and both throw. It's just that I think one is a better runner, one is a better thrower.
Got a text here on the Titan More text line from Kyle. He says, how does the special teams rebound after losing McPherson and Tony? Do we have a returner like that on this roster?
Finley Graham, I think, is going to end up being the punt returner. And Finley Graham was out of Lakeland, was as probably the best return guy that we'd seen in the state since Brandon James. And he was injured last year, didn't play. I think he's going to be the return guy, and I think he's going to be exceptional in that area. I'm looking. I think the special teams are going to be very, very good this year.
Is the kicker pretty much penciled in as the kid that transferred from Mississippi State?
Jace Christman, yeah. He's a guy that was Shane. He was 12 for 14 on field goals with a long of 51 and 42 for 42 on extra points in 2017. When he left Mississippi State, he was the all-time leading scorer at the school. So you got a guy that's experienced, that's been there, that knows the pressure of making kicks when a game is on the line. This is a guy that you can count on and go to.
Justin says on the Titan More text line, is our offensive line going to be any better?
Yes. Purely and simply, yes. In terms of actual experience, this is the most experienced offensive line we've had since 2018. I mean, people tend to forget that in 2019, we had an offensive line that had, I think it was like 17 starts collectively. And they were the 127th least experienced team, offensive line in the country. They were in 2020, there was not a great deal of experience. You had John Lance, who has come back as a starter. But look at all the guys that had lost from there. They only really had two guys that had played a lot, and that was last year. And then you added Reese there, and Reese came in, did not have the benefit of conditioning in the offseason, and tried to play at about 370 last year. And they've got him down to about 345 now, and he's got his quickness back. So I think that's going to be the critical factor there. Not only though with Stewart, but I think with everybody on that offensive line, I think the conditioning last year of our offensive line was not good. And I think the conditioning of the whole team was not good. And that's because you give up an entire off season of strength and conditioning, and that just doesn't work well.
Yeah. I got a question for you. You know, I don't know if you have heard this, but I said it a lot on Buddy's show, on my show. After I watched a couple of scrimmages before the season started last year, I was very concerned about our defense, especially the defensive line, because that's where it all starts. I thought we were very undersized and we didn't play very well at the interior of the defensive line last year. So Dan goes out and gets a kid transfer from Auburn and Penn State, big guys who have played a lot of football. In my opinion, those two guys are the most important guys, in my opinion, for this defense to be much, much better next year. You got any thoughts on that? Am I crazy?
No, you're not. You're spot on, Shane. And that you know from your own experience, going to you step up to that line of scrimmage and you look at that defense and you see those two monster guys across from you. I mean, you faced the Alabama defense in 1992. You're the only guy that actually lit them up. But you look at the guys they had up front, and they were, for the 1992 size, they were monstrous and strong, powerful guys. Florida's going to present that kind of dilemma, I think, this year. They're going to run that 3-4, and you look at that with Zachary Carter on one end. I'm so glad that he came back because I think that he could play himself into a high draft pick this year. He's bigger, he's stronger. Then you take the two guys in the middle, Valentino. Used to be known as Shelton, but he's Antonio Valentino now. And Daquan Newkirk. And as you said, they're experienced guys. They're both about 310 pounds. And they cover gaps. People don't realize that what gap integrity means. And these guys have gap integrity. You're not going to be able to go up the middle on the Gators. And they're going to be able to get some pressure in the middle. I'll give you the perfect example of how well that works. In 2006, in the national championship game against Ohio State, Stephen Harris almost got 2 sacks, just knocking that All-American center, Romberg, back into the backfield. He almost sacked the quarterback just from pushing the center back, and the center almost knocked down the quarterback. When you get that push in the middle, it just opens things up on the outside. I think Zachary Carter's an experienced pass rusher. It's a contract year for Brenton Cox Jr. I really believe this is going to be a very good defensive line. And I think that Gervon Dexter coming in behind, I think he got a lot of experience last year. He doesn't have the pressure. You know, he was a 5-star guy that came in with a lot of pressure on him to produce. And he played like a typical freshman. I think he's going to play a lot better this year. And I think that's going to be critical in what goes on. I'm liking what I see in there.
Good. Last thing for you there, Franz. Charlie has a text on the Titan Mart text line. He wants to know, Franz, who is going to be your newcomer of the year?
Wow. I think it's quite possibly either one of those two guys you just mentioned, Daquan Newkirk and Antonio Valentino. But I'm gonna stretch it a little bit further than that. I think the guy that's going to end up being the newcomer of the year is a guy named Jadarius Perkins. Played with D1 Black. I'm very high on D1 Black too. As a do-everything type, people are going to be amazed at how good this guy is and how many different ways they can use him. But Jadarius Perkins played at Perkinson at Mississippi Gulf Coast with DeJuan Black, went to Missouri, and then transferred into Florida. Saw what he didn't like what he saw there, talked to his buddy DeJuan Black, said, I'm going to be a Gator too. And this is a guy that you can play at that star position. He can be that hybrid guy that's semi-safety, semi-linebacker, semi-cover, and do all three pretty well. And I think he's going to be that newcomer of the year that's really going to surprise everybody and play very, very well for the Gators.
Let me ask you the last question that came to my mind. The running back room has got a lot of talented players, 2 5-stars in Lingard and Bowman. Out of those 2 5-stars, do one of those guys step up and take control of that position?
I actually think Dameon Pierce is going to be the running back of choice. I think he's going to be the starter. But you're going to see Lingard and you're going to see Bowman. Bowman more as a runner. I think you're going to see Lingard, Naquan Wright, and Malik Davis sort of playing like Percy did. You got to remember when Percy was there, Percy would line up a lot in the slot. He would go out wide, but he'd be in the slot a lot. And all of a sudden, they shift either Rainey or Demps out back to the slot. On the other side, Percy slides back into tailback. Boom, you got it. Percy comes on a jet sweep. You got it. You can run the option, bring in Percy in motion, and Tebow comes down, pitches that to him, and he becomes like a running back. I think they're going to use a 2 running back system a lot, probably 60% of the time, to get all 5 guys on the field on a regular rotation. And I think it's going to be fun to watch that. And I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on opposing defensive coordinators, because we saw what Naquan Wright and Malik could do last year against Georgia. Boy, did they ever torch Georgia, those 2 guys. I think that Dan is too smart not to use them in the lineup at the same time with his running backs and put a lot of pressure on there, because all 5 of these guys can catch the football. All 5 of these guys have speed. And Dameon Pierce, people forget that Dameon Pierce broke all of Herschel's rushing records in the state of Georgia. He hasn't gotten a lot of carries, so he's still got fresh legs. He's not a guy that's been here and has gotten 300 carries a year for 3 years. This is a guy that's only got I think maybe about 200 carries in 3 years. So he's got fresh legs, and he's a real battering ram. So I like what I see there, and I'm going to be really surprised if Dan doesn't play a lot of 2-back situations. Only one of them will be in the slot.
Good stuff as always, Franz. Let everybody know how they can check your workout.
Gator Bait Media. It's on Facebook in the Gator Nation Kingdom, or the Gator Nation Daily News, or Gator Bait Online Magazine. And I'll be writing this week about the strength and conditioning, how it suffered last year and how the Gators suffered because of it, and how Nick Savage is probably going to be the MVC this year, the most valuable coach.
Good stuff, Franz. Be safe, my man. We'll talk to you soon. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Shane. I love you.
Yeah, that's Franz.
Great show.
Yeah, thank you so much. Franz Beaird joined us on the Titan MR hotline. Center State Bank is now South State Bank, but we still put business first. We understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. South State still has 4 convenient Alachua County locations. South State Bank, banking forward, member FDIC. We really appreciate Brent Beaird and Franz Beaird joining us on the Titan MR hotline. Hope you enjoyed today's program. Be safe out there, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Today's show's a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, won't back down. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, non-surgical regeneration, live pain-free. South State Bank, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Chomp Carter Apparel, Ruse Ogra Agent, State Farm Insurance, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.